Hello everyone, this module will introduce you to high-speed food photography. This type of photography steps into more of the advertisement and commercial side of food photography rather than the kind you would see in the editorial market like cookbooks and magazines. This type of photography is used everywhere. From box ads to the TV commercials, you can find some type of high-speed photography in there. Oftentimes I see a lot of high-speed liquid photography, but I'm starting to see more and more of food flying. Whole meals, in fact, can be seen flying and falling through the air, perfectly frozen in time by the photographer. So how do they do it? Well, we'll get to that, but first let's look at some great examples. We're going to look at two photographers who are really good at this type of photography. First will be Peter Greguski, who has some amazing drinks and dishes flying around the frame here and there. And the second is Trevor Pearson, who has a lot of great high-speed images too, and he even won an award for it from the International Photography Awards a few years back. Now, to get started, let's look at Peter's photography first. And what I noticed first when looking at his photographs is not only is the food falling and he's freezing it perfectly in the frame, but there's a lot of post-processing done to these images, and so he's planning the shoot really well to put it all together later in Photoshop. You can see with like this image of the burger, we have some elements, different elements that you're gonna have to plan for, which one, the falling food, and then the liquid and the lighting. Those are the three, real elements that you're going to have to plan for. And so to break it down and kind of rework how he did the image in my mind, I'm going to say that he first photographed the burger in different steps. So probably dropping the bun and lettuce first and then photographing that, dropping the burger, photographing that, dropping the tomato and the onions, photographing that, and dropping the last bun and photographing that. And he probably dropped the last bun with some sauce on it to get kind of the realisticness of the picture or of the image to be put together. And then the next step would be to photograph the sauce or the liquid. And he most likely photographed that by dropping it onto the background, photographing it or freezing it in time, and then in Photoshop reversing the image so it looks like it's coming up out of the plate instead of falling from the sky. And then he probably photographed just the plate and the background and put it all together in Photoshop. So he took the image of the plate, and then he took each piece of the burger and then the liquid. Something like that, in that order. And you can see that his technique is relatively the same. If this is how he's doing it in Photoshop, and I really think it is how he's doing it first in camera and then in Photoshop by photographing each piece separately, then you can see that this kind of technique is kind of similar throughout all of his images. So here we have these falling pancakes, fruit, and some more liquid or syrup in this photo. And again, I think he's dropping the liquid and then reversing the photo in Photoshop so it looks like the liquid is coming up out of the plate. And then he's dropping each food and photographing it separately and putting it together in Photoshop. And probably he's probably making the shadows in Photoshop as well. Or he's dropping maybe 2 of the pancakes at a time and then another 2. So the shadows would stay there and it would be easier than putting them together in Photoshop later. Here we have a really detailed image, and it must have taken a long time to put this all together in Photoshop. Here's another example of his work, and I think he's just dropping the food and then putting each piece together in Photoshop. So dropping the shrimp, taking a picture, dropping the lettuce, taking a picture, and then some spices, taking a picture, and then with the liquid, probably 3 different pictures there. So it's probably all in all together 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 5 or 6 pictures put together in Photoshop with the same background. And I think it's important to note that he's most likely not moving his lights or his camera or his aperture or anything else for this technique. So everything stays the same. All the lighting stays the same throughout each time he drops a piece of food. Really cool work, very abstract, and it has a lot of use in the commercial, the commercial market or the realm of the commercial and advertisement world. This could be used for a restaurant who's advertising their new salad, probably a corporate restaurant like Chili's or something like that, that is, TGI Fridays, that is advertising their new salad of the month. Or it could be used on a salad dressing bottle or a package or a TV ad commercial or something like that, if it was motion. So a lot of uses for a photo like this. Really cool. I think the technique is pretty much staying the same for each picture. It might be changing here or there. You might be dropping, some, photographing some at the same time as he's dropping it. But all in all, I think, pretty much the technique is to drop one thing, photograph it, and drop another thing and photograph it and put it together later in Photoshop. So I think the style is really getting, evolved here, and it's getting better as he's going at it. I think these might be later images than the first one, and you can see that they're, I think, even a little bit better than his first ones. Who knows? I don't know. Maybe these are the first ones and that he took, and the first images that I showed you are the other later ones. Okay, this is Trevor Pearson's series of high-speed images, and I think these are photographed all at once, so all at the same time. And he's using the same, pretty much relatively the same technique as Peter before, but instead of dropping them separately and photographing each piece separately, I think he's just throwing it and then photographing it, and it's getting more of an abstract result, so not as perfect as Peter's images were. And also you can see that the food is in different stages of its flight path. So this one has struck the table and he photographed it then. This one's mid-fall. So you can see that compositionally they're not as perfect as Peter's, but they are still pretty cool. And it's using the same technique, it's just maybe one image or 2 images rather than 6 or 7 or 10 like Peter's. This is an image that you'd see quite often in the advertisement field for a drink, and it's the pour shot, and it's one image or maybe 2 images blended together, and you don't really need a lot of images for a shot like this because you can pretty much get in 1 or 2 images and blend them together in Photoshop. No 9 or 10 or something like that, like you saw in the first photographer, Peter. Although these type of photography most likely requires assistant to drop the food as you take the photograph and pop the lights. You can get creative with it too. It doesn't have to be falling food or falling ice cubes or something like that. A shot like this is really simple and very beautiful, and also has a lot of commercial applications for it. Pure water, clean water, water energy. I mean, I could see a lot of applications for a photo like this. So these are the photos that we were looking at today, and I think it's a great start to look at. These photos are really good examples of what we're talking about when we say high-speed photography. And I know you can go and search the internet and find a billion other examples of food falling around or flying around or or liquid falling or flying around the frame. But I think these are really great commercial starts, ones that would be very useful for commercial purposes. And they're very well done. The lighting is beautiful. The backgrounds are beautiful. So I will see you in the next demonstration where we're actually going to drop some food and see it, see how I can do at this technique. And then later you can see how you're going to do too as well. All right, thank you very much, and I'll see you in class.